OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World and a Happy New Year. Look, tonight on this show we have Barry Gardiner. He's back on the show. We've got Paula London. She's a political broadcaster and commentator. We've also got Paula Diana. She's on the show for the second time. Legendary cook and broadcaster Anthony Worrell Thompson. And Sam Prince from Made in Chelsea. But first, let's go to the news.
Hello, good evening. I'm Sam Francis in the GB Newsroom. The headlines at 7. Flooding across parts of England has been described as pure hell. That's as hundreds of warnings remain in place across the country in the wake of Storm Henk. In Nottinghamshire, a senior councillor has said that some residents have been affected by floodwaters there 3 times in just 3 months. More than 1,000 properties across the country remain flooded after the heavy downpours this week. And a cold weather alert has been issued by the UK Health Security Agency as temperatures look set to plummet at the end of this weekend. Rishi Sunak is facing another by-election as MP Chris Skidmore has announced he will resign as soon as possible. The former Energy Minister plans to step down when Parliament returns next week because of new legislation for oil and gas drilling, which he says is wrong and will cause future harm. The government says the planned expansion, though, of the new fossil fuels in the North Sea is vital to achieve energy security plans. The NatWest chairman is rowing back on comments that he made on radio this morning when he suggested that it was easy to buy a house. Sir Howard Davies told the BBC those wishing to get on the property ladder need to save their money. He now says, though, that he recognises the challenges to owning a home and he will reflect on what he called easier access to mortgages. Data from Halifax shows that house prices have shot up by nearly £5,000 within a year, with the cost of an average home equating to around 8.5 years of a buyer's salary. Local residents in Hull have told GB News they feel let down.
We need more houses and like bungalows and that for adapted people, you know, for disabled.
I've got a few friends who are trying to get onto the property for the first time and they're telling me it's difficult. Just to try and save the initial 10% or even sometimes 5%.
I definitely think that the new homes should be more affordable to the average working family because they like seem to start off at £250,000. Ofsted inspections will restart in schools from the 22nd of this month.
The announcement comes after they were halted to ensure that inspectors received mental health training. Ofsted's new chief inspector said a few days ago that the inspection process needs to be far more empathetic after various complaints from within the education sector. The Shadow Chancellor says she understands why some people want the former Post Office boss to lose her CBE over the Horizon scandal. The government is being urged to pay compensation to those affected. More than 700 staff were imprisoned when flawed software led to false accusations that they'd stolen money. Rachel Reeves says more needs to be done.
I can understand why people are saying that the former head of the Post Office should return her honour. My focus would be on getting the compensation to those who were wrongly convicted of these crimes.
Meanwhile, a man who's been suspected of faking his own death has been extradited from Scotland to the US. Nicholas Rossi is wanted for allegedly raping a woman in 2008. He was arrested in Glasgow in 2021 but claimed it was a case of mistaken identity, insisting he was instead an Irish orphan named Arthur Knight. After a long legal battle in the Scottish courts, the 36-year-old has now been ordered to face the charges against him in the States. Tributes are being paid for Derek Draper, a former political advisor and the husband of TV presenter Kate Garraway, who has died at the age of 56. He passed away following several years of serious health complications due to COVID. Former Prime Minister Sir Tony Blair has called him a good colleague and a great friend. Gordon Brown has also described him as multi-talented. In a post on social media earlier, his wife, Kate, said she was holding her darling husband's hand throughout his last long hours. And items that were owned by Marilyn Monroe and Hugh Hefner are up for grabs in a special auction. Those dreaming of their very own Playboy mansion can get their hands on Hefner's famous smoking jacket and silk pyjamas. There's also a black evening gown that was worn by Monroe during the making of the classic film The 7-Year Itch, and a custom shade of Elizabeth Arden lipstick in a gold case is also available. It was created especially for the Hollywood star. That's the latest. For more, we're on TV, digital radio and, of course, on our website, gbnews.com. This is GB News.
Today, I'm joined by Paula Diana, who's an author. She's a podcast host and an entrepreneur. Welcome back to the show for the second time, Paula. Also got our resident left in the corner. Barry's back after a short break. He's over there, still on the gin from Christmas. Happy New Year to you both. Get straight into it, guys. We hear parties like Reform and the Lib Dems and the Green Party keep harping on about proportional representation for our voting system. Paula, you're from Italy. It's a place which has PR. Does it work, and why are these parties asking for this?
Well, I think that PR does not work at all and would be a disaster for this country. As I said, I come from Italy. And Italy, during the First Republic, 50 years of time, between 1944 and 1994, was destroyed by PR system because we had 56 governments. So the huge instability in Italy, that is infamous, everywhere in the world knows about that, comes from the electoral system. We have to let people understand that the electoral system shapes the way political parties are in a country. So if you have a lower barrier to enter into politics, the more political parties will form. So we will have more small parties coming up in eventually a PR system. And big parties tend to break down into different currents. So it would be dangerous for big parties like the Tories and the Labour in this country. Okay. And the problem with the small parties is that they tend to become a niche. So they focus on smallest policies. Coalitions become inevitable. We all understand that. And if you think that coalition is a democratic thing, and it's a good thing, I tell you to reconsider that thought, because coalition is the door to hell. Yeah. Because it's a door to instability. You can't have change because all these small parties will never make a decision together, so they can't govern, basically.
Paula says, Barry, it's a door to disaster. We know there's quite a few in the Labour Party would love to see PR introduced. I don't think you're a fan. Some common sense there from the Labour Party, but is it a door to disaster?
Look, Lee, you and I are both constituency MPs.
Yeah.
Right? And no matter who our constituents are, no matter what way they vote, we serve them.
Yep.
I hate PR because it breaks that link of one MP with constituents serving their constituents. And that, to me, is one of the most important reasons to keep the system of first past the post that we've got. But I think there's also another reason to oppose PR, and that is that I like honest politics. You like honest politics. Look, we disagree on lots of things, right?
Everything.
But we like being straight about our politics.
Yeah.
And what PR does is, precisely because you have those coalitions that Paula's talking about, it means that you go on the doorstep before the election and you say, this is what we're going to do. You then go into a coalition, you find you can't do the thing that you promised you were going to do, and the next time you go back on the doorstep, the voter says, but hang on, you didn't, oh, well, it wasn't our fault. It was the others in the coalition that wouldn't allow us to do it. So if you want honest politics, if you want an accountable member of Parliament that's responsible for everyone in that constituency, who knows and loves the constituency as you do in yours and I do in mine, then you've got to keep first past the post.
That's a good point that Barry makes. In the current voting system, we get to represent our constituency, but in PR voting, they just lump all the votes in the pot and then they say how many votes they've got. Maybe a smaller party would get 5 million votes and then they choose 30-odd candidates to become members of Parliament, but they're not actually representing an area of Parliament. So surely that personal connection, for me, is a bad thing.
100%. You're right, and Barry's right. So it's dangerous, PR, because it's not honest. And the fact that people say it's more democratic is just an illusion. Because usually within these coalitions, you know which is the party that holds the balance of power? Usually it's the smallest party.
Yeah.
And then they constantly blackmail the bigger parties because they want them to make some reforms that are extreme reforms. And at the end, everything collapses because they keep stabbing them on the back. And you will have different governments that they will not do any
Let's
policy.
go back to Barry with my original question. Sorry, Paula. In that parties like Reform, the Green Party, the Lib Dems, why do they keep harping on, bleating on about having PR in this country, Barry?
Oh, it's very simple. They would get more seats in Parliament under PR. And you can see the attraction of what they say. They say, look, a lot of people in the country, maybe 15%, will vote for a smaller party, but they don't get 15% of the seats in the Parliament.
Yeah.
So they make what is seemingly a very attractive case. But because of the reasons we've just talked about, the way in which it undermines that integrity in politics, I wouldn't want to see it.
Paula,
Yeah,
you have it in Italy. You told us what happens in Italy. Can we learn lessons from other countries that have PR?
Absolutely. We have to learn the lesson. You will never have to change the winning horse with a donkey because it's madness. In Italy in '94, they reformed the political system and now they have a 75% of first post and they're trying to create a majority vote. But it's still not perfect. So I think that in this country, this is the best political system we have. And we should not let the Lib Dem or the Reform Party to create an unstable, a non-stable political landscape.
Okay, I'll give the last word to Barry because, Barry, what would you say to anybody out there watching this programme, or anybody out there in general that is attracted by the proposition of PR voting? I think it's a good thing. What would you say to them?
Look, I'd say I understand why you're attracted by it initially, but think it through. Think not just of, is there a strict mathematical equivalence between the number of votes that a party gets and the number of seats it gets. Think through the consequences of it. The consequences, like Paula said, the tail wagging the dog in a government. Look what happened to you when you were in government with the Lib Dems.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you promised on the doorstep, you couldn't deliver. Some of the things that they promised on the doorstep, they couldn't deliver. And you'll remember, actually, the Liberals paid a huge price for that at the next election because they went back on their commitment.
They did, Barry, but
to not charge student fees.
But just say, for argument's sake, we did have PR in this country, and a constituent in Brent North or wherever has got a problem with the local school or something like that. They want to see their MP on a Saturday morning. Where do they go?
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Under PR, they don't know who to go to because there are many different forms of it, but you've got a list system. Sometimes you'll have multi-member constituencies. That means that there's 1, 2, 3 MPs representing an area. So actually, it's a confusion for people.
Yeah.
You and I, we know that we represent everybody who lives in our constituency. And we do that without fear or favour. No matter which way we vote, we'll still work just as hard for them.
Well, there you go. Barry says it's a confusion. Paula says it's a door to disaster. I tend to agree, but we're going straight now to the yes or no quiz. Right, it's time for the yes or no quiz. I've got Paula and I've got Barry to join me today. Look, it's simple, guys, and week after week we see politicians, we see influencers, we see broadcasters, we see all these people come on this show and can't get 5 out of 5. So I'm banking on you, Per, today to get 5 out of 5. So we'll start with you first, Paula. Should we have proportional representation voting in the UK?
No.
Barry?
No.
Good start. Number 2, Barry. Is Sadiq Khan going to win the mayoral election in London?
Yes.
Paula?
No.
Strong answer. Paula, is Donald Trump going to win the US presidency?
Yes.
Barry?
No.
Strong no from Barry. Number 4, Barry, can the Conservatives win the general election?
No. No.
Was that 2 no's? That's 2 no's. I'll let you off with that one. Paula?
Yes.
Number 5, Paula, has devolution been a success?
No.
Barry?
Yes.
So, 5 out of 5 for the first. Barry, he slipped up on question 4 a little bit. He put 2 no's in there, but I think he was just emphasising a no. So we'll let him off with that one. So well done, guys. Is there one you want to come back on, Barry?
Devolution.
Okay.
I think devolution has had its problems. So it's a complicated yes here, because devolution's had its problems.
Yeah.
But I think fundamentally, had we not embarked on devolution, we'd have seen a much stronger movement for the breakup of the United Kingdom. And that's why I gave it a strong yes. I think it's done its job. It's held the union together. We need to refine it. We need to make it better.
Yeah.
But, I think, yes, it's...
But at what cost, though, Barry? I mean, you touched on it
Sure.
there. The health service and education system in Scotland is failing. We've got the health service in Wales failing. We've got patients in Wales coming over to England to get the treatment. So how has that been a success?
Well, I mean, there's 7 million on the waiting list in England, so I mean, I don't think the health service in England...
That's probably, Barry, thanks to your friends in the unions going on strike every 10 minutes
it's not.
as well.
It's not, because you were already at 3.5 million.
So do
before.
strikes affect patient outcomes? I think they probably do.
Look, if you had your life in the hands of somebody who had to make a decision to how to keep you alive, and you knew that they were being paid as little as £14 an hour, I think you would say, pay
But
them
it's not
more.
£14.
It is. No, it is. Junior doctors.
But they have all the bonuses, the add-ons, the shift premiums.
No. You mean you want them to work 70 hours a week?
No,
you don't want somebody working 70
No, I
hours
don't,
a
Barry.
week,
Look, we're
taking life
diverging a little bit, but I will say this. When you sign on the dotted line to do a job, and that's your contract, and that's your wages, and that's your hours, that's what you agree to. You don't turn around 2 minutes later and say, I want a 35%
It's
pay
not 2
rise,
minutes,
also I'm not
13
working.
years later, and that's what they're saying. They're saying over the past 14 years now,
But why didn't
they've lost year on year on year, and they've swallowed it because they care about patients
But they are,
so much.
anyway, they're the last of the public sector workers
And now
Barry,
they're
to
saying
accept
enough's
a
enough.
reasonable 11% pay rise. But it got a little bit heated there in the middle, especially with Barry. He had plenty to say, but look, do not go away, because coming up next we've got celebrity chef Anthony Worrell-Thompson. You don't want to miss this one.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. We're going back in the day now with legendary chef Anthony Worrell-Thompson. Thanks, Anthony, for coming on the show. Look, let's get straight to it because you started cooking at an early age. Was it forced upon you?
It was slightly. My parents were both actors. My father left when I was 3. My mother was always working, so I was often dumped with au pair girls. And one of them gave me a raw bacon sandwich. She was German. I think she thought it was Laschinken or Parma ham or something. I said, enough's enough, so I moved on very quickly.
Did you eat that?
I sort of attempted it, but no, it didn't go down well.
How can you chew raw bacon?
I like it now. But it has to be really well smoked.
OK, so you started at an early age. It was forced upon you, really, through not liking the food that you was being served up.
Yeah.
But you went to uni, didn't like that too much, and then ended up in the kitchen somewhere.
Yeah, I did a hotel management course, and you'd spread too thin. You have to do a bit of this, a bit of that, and I don't really want to know how carpet's made. So I love the practicality of cooking. And he did a little bit of an hour's cooking a week in that, and they said, whatever he does, don't let him in the kitchen. I was doing Dover Sole in bright blue and whatever it was in those days. But yeah, a chef didn't turn up one day, and I went in the kitchen and stayed there ever since.
You loved it?
I love it. I mean, I still cook now. I've sold one of my restaurants, but I've still got one. And I just love being on the stoves.
But it's not well paid, Anthony, is it? And it's awkward hours, it's unsociable hours. How do you put up with that?
It's getting harder and harder, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I apart from 2 weeks in my career, I was a head chef. So I conned my way into the job, told the second chef what to do, then watch how he did it. And so my management skills did come in useful. But yeah, so I've always been fairly well paid. And obviously, if you do a bit of telly, it's good for everything.
I suppose that all helps.
But I mean, it is, for the youngster coming into this industry, it's poor money, poor money.
It is. Now, I get a little bit of stick on social media.
No, really?
Yeah, I do, yeah. Over my comments I made about food poverty. Now, we did a project a few years back, me and some other MPs, a local food bank, and some volunteers, where we was batch cooking. A chef told me, a good chef, local chef, that he could feed a family of 5 for 50 quid a week. I didn't believe him, so I threw the challenge out. We had a bet. We went to the local supermarket, bought 50 quid's worth of groceries with some kids, and the following day we got in the kitchen, we filmed it all, and he managed to rustle up 172 meals for 50 quid. That worked out, Anthony, at 30 pence a meal. And when I said this in Parliament, I got absolutely roasted. Now, you'll know better than me. You're a chef. Can we make food, wholesome food, cheap?
You can. You've got to search around for it a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, going into the supermarket at the end of the day and getting the good value meals, I mean, not ready meals, but product.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to buy ready meals, you should have to pay a lot for it. But if you're going to cook from scratch, I mean, certainly in the winter, you've got to root vegetables are really cheap, good value. You can do things. I mean, last night I just took some pork and made a larb, which is a sort of stir-fry thing with served with lettuce leaves. Cost me 70p a portion.
70p.
And I was doing it for the family. That's not skimping.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but unfortunately, they've lost their way with food. They love watching it on telly, but they don't actually like
Why have they
cooking it.
lost their way with food? And why can't people cook from scratch anymore?
I think it's they don't get enough education at school in that respect. It's always a voluntary subject.
And parents?
Parents are lazy quite often. I hate to say that. I don't generalise, obviously, usually, but a lot of them are, and they'll push them out and go and get a sort of fast food meal.
You know what winds me up, Anthony, is when people say to me, but your processed junk food is cheaper than fresh ingredients. I don't think it is.
No, it's not. Not really. If you really analyse it, it's not. Yeah. It appears cheap, but then, you know, you've got people going out there spending 4 quid on a cup of coffee, 8 quid on an avocado on toast or whatever. Their priorities, the youngsters' priorities have changed big time. So they're not really interested in cooking. They want to be served. And I think that's a big problem for our industry as we go forward.
Now, you must have cooked in the past for some famous people. Who's the most famous person you've cooked for? And what was the feedback like?
It's probably the Queen, actually.
Queen? You cooked for the Queen?
Good, God bless her. Yeah, I did it on HMS Victory many years ago. And she was coming around and we met her and shake her hands delicately with her little white gloves on. But the Duke of Edinburgh was coming behind and he obviously cracks a joke. You're that little runt who rattles pots and pans on Saturday mornings. He wake me up every single Saturday. And, I mean, they're good. I did Princess Diana, did 700 at the Guildhall for her Royal Marsden charity. Yeah, I've done a few.
So what would Princess Diana, that's an interesting one. What did you cook for Princess Diana?
It was called Great Chefs of the Decade, so I knew I had to get, by calling them that, I played on their egos. Nobody wanted to miss out on being called a great chef. So I organised that, and we did a 7-course dinner for her charity.
Any difficult customers in the past that didn't like what you put in front of them?
You've always got difficult customers. It doesn't matter where you go. I think what I've tried to do in my career, I mean, I did Nouvelle Cuisine and made a good name restaurant called Ménage à Trois many years ago in Beecham Place, and that was Princess Diana's apparently favourite restaurant.
Really?
But it was very small, pretty pictures on plates, not a lot of substance. Now, I'm really into big flavours. Doesn't matter what part of the world it comes from, as long as it tastes nice.
Yeah.
I hate people to say, you can't call it that. Why not? You know, if they've invented a dish in Portugal or India, and you can improve on that dish, why shouldn't you?
I mean, I've been to some of the restaurants in London and some of the posher ones, should we say, and you get these plates come about that big, and you get a portion on about that big. Now, I know it's all about the experience and the flavour, but I'm sorry, Anthony, I want a plate full of mash.
Come to my restaurant.
Some pie. In fact, I've been to one restaurant, it was a local restaurant to where I live, actually. At the end of the night, we had to go to the chip shop on the way home because we're that hungry. What is it? Is it the experience? Is there a bit of snobbery involved?
Yeah, I think you go through that as a chef. It's your ego. You want to prove you can do it. You want to, you know, do all this sort of poncy stuff. And it's a fashion. It's going to go out of fashion. This molecular gastronomy has not got a lot of life left in it, I don't think. People, especially when there's a crisis going on and the economy's bad, they want substance. They want good food in their stomachs.
We talked about difficult punters earlier. And surely you know, in your time in the restaurants, there must have been some characters come in trying for a freebie that's had a meal, scoffed it all, and at the end of it said, I didn't really like that, and tried to get a refund. Or did you come across that?
Yeah, you do. I mean, you get some real, I don't want to say it's a word beginning with A, but I mean, there is, I mean, I had one who, we had a restaurant called 190 Queensgate, and it was very, very busy. And we got this table for 6, friend of the other directors, and said, okay, but you'll have to be out by 8. Came 8, I came along, said, I'm sorry, would you like to have dessert? We got a little separate room for dessert. No, we're staying. I said, no, you're not. Yes, we are. And he said to me, who are you? I said, well, I'm one of the directors and I'm the chef proprietor, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So they refused to go, so I got the waiters, I said, clear the table. It was a round table, and there were six of them around a round table. I got the waiters to lift the table over their heads, and nothing more embarrassing than me sitting in a circle with nothing in the middle, is there?
Wow.
So those are the sort of things I used to do in my youth. But another one, sirloin, they said, this sirloin is frozen. Tell the chef he can stick that up where the sun doesn't shine. And I said, I was very proud of my meat, hanging on blood, dripping on the bone. I took it out, cleared the table, threw this big piece of meat like this on the table. I said, if that's frozen, you can stick it there yourself.
Well, and what sort of response did you get?
His wife loved me, came up to me and said, I've been wanting someone to do that to him for ages.
You talked about schools earlier, Anthony, and the fact that the food education's not there in schools. This is something I've sort of campaigned on a little bit. I want to see it back on the curriculum in every school. I know some schools do teach it, but it's so important to learn children how to make basic meals.
Well, also just to learn a bit of knowledge about food. You know, you've got kids out there who don't know ham comes from pigs. You know, they think it just comes in a bag from Tesco's or wherever. And I think it's that food education as much as cooking, understanding food, understanding what goes with what, and teaching them the basic skills. If you've got a portfolio of about 12 dishes, you can get through
And we
that.
see that in some of the poorest countries, the food actually tastes nicer.
Brilliant, yeah.
Because they really have to look for stuff, don't they?
They do. I mean, I've just come back from Bali a few weeks ago, and the food was amazing, you know, and really cheap ingredients and very cheap to buy in the restaurants, and it was fab. We should be able to do more of that.
Yeah, I think I like my Indian food, but I've been told, I've never been to India, but it probably tastes a little bit different out there than what it does in our restaurants. But again, they have to be creative with what they've got available.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been westernised, definitely. When you go to India, you'll see some amazing flavours.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is what it is. They pandered to the British public to start with, and there are Indian chefs there, brilliant chefs, who are doing unique food.
Come on then, Auntie. Favourite meal, your last supper, what would it be?
Oh, last supper. It would have to be a pot of caviar to start with. I know it's out of most people's price range, including my own now, with some nice bellinis and your sour cream and that sort of stuff. Then a big rib of British or Scottish beef with all the trimmings. And then, as I'm going to die anyway, a portion of sticky toffee pudding to finish.
That'd do it, wouldn't it?
Actually, kill me off.
Auntie, that's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, nice talking to you.
Look, do not go away, because coming up next, we've got Right versus Left with Paula London and Barry Gardner.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 till 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Radio. The Camilla Tominey Show, only on GB News.
I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day, but equally it's because it champions free speech, and as a journalist that's what I'm all about. Every Sunday morning at 9:30 we're packing into 90 minutes solid punchy politics with a bit of a twist. We not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30 on GB.
Joining me now for the roundtable discussion, I've got broadcaster and political commentator Paula London. She's on the show for the first time, and back my old mucker Barry Gardiner. He's the MP for Brent North. He's a good man. Look, we're going to talk about immigration. Net migration to this country has increased. I think it's 10 million over the past 26 years. Paula, what have the benefits been of this increase?
There's not many benefits. What is quite interesting is that in the last 20 years, we've had very, very low birth rate, the lowest birth rate in decades. But quite interesting, 1/3 of all births were born to women not born in the UK. So normally with a very high population, there will be more births, but this is not happening in this country. Most people coming over, though, it's very important to remember, are coming here to work. And we do need people to work, obviously. And then we've got people that are studying, that's the second amount of people. And then humanitarian, these are the genuine refugees from Ukraine and Hong Kong. Then it's the families, which thankfully the Conservative government are going to do a lot about that. So the families won't be able to come with students anymore unless they're studying for research subjects or PhDs. And then afterwards, it's the asylum seekers. Sometimes it feels that everyone coming over to this country are asylum seekers, and that isn't actually the case. So that's good. And I feel like it can go down. Net migration can actually even be half this year. We're going to have less people, humanitarian people coming over, less students' families, and also less people can't bring their spouse now unless they're earning more money. And also the average wage, well, the minimum wage for people to come over to work is going to be increased. It used to be 26 and now it's going to be 38. So that can halve. I mean, our net migration figure can definitely halve. Last year it was 672,000, but it was only 184 in 2019.
Okay. Barry, migration, net migration goes up year on year. When does it come to a stage where we say, hold on a minute, we need to cap this because our island is full? Because in 50 years' time, 100 years' time, you've been speaking about your grandchildren today, maybe in 70, 80 years' time, they'll be watching a clip on YouTube of old Grandad Barry when he was in Parliament, and they will be. And they were saying, you know what, Grandad, and mine, if I've got any grandchildren, we're saying, look at my Grandad there, or my great-granddad, why didn't you do something about the alarming increase in migration in this country? Because now we're full.
Well, you need to be careful, Lee, because in the 13 years of a Labour government, net migration went up from 58 to 62 million, 4 million, OK? It increased by 4 million. In the 13 years of the Conservative government, it's gone up by 6 million. So the answer to that would be, if you're worried about net migration, vote Labour. So
Really?
you need to be very
I don't agree with that.
Well, those are the
listen.
figures, and I challenge anybody to
There will be
the figures.
people.
But I thought it was very interesting, Paula, what you said about the what they call fertility. And you're absolutely right that fertility is an important factor in this. Under Labour, people feel better. They feel they've got more money.
True.
They've got more money. They're more confident about bringing a child into the world.
When you made that statement earlier about vote Labour for less migration, there would have been plenty.
No, I said if you're worried about net migration, then the math would suggest.
Okay, then vote Labour. There will be plenty of people at home watching this who will actually spit their tea out. You know,
We're talking about
laughing at that, 'cause
Tony Blair for starters.
Well, he created that culture, didn't he, Tony Blair, of opening the boards up, letting everybody in. And yeah, it's not been perfect. It's not been rosy over the past 13 years. But we're trying to get to grips with it. We've introduced measures now like the.
But Lee, you promised, you know, your party promised to bring the figures down. They haven't. They've gone up.
Will the Labour Party bring them down?
Yes, I think we would.
Okay.
I think look. I think what we would do is we would have more focus on training people in this country. Now, you rightly talked about the need that we have. We've had a baby boomer generation, right, that are now coming to the end of their working lives. They need that care. And you rightly said, you know, we've welcomed those doctors coming in because they're the people who are going to take care of us in our old age.
Yeah, but we say,
Barry, how long are we going to use that excuse to import the brightest and the best from around the world?
Well, that's
We've
why
been
I said
using
what
this
Labour-
excuse.
yeah.
No, you can't just talk about Labour and Conservatives here. We've been using this excuse since the end of the Second World War. We've imported people who did it from the Commonwealth in the 50s,
absolutely.
60s and
Absolutely
70s.
right.
And we're still using this excuse that we need to bring people in. I don't agree with that. This is where I'm at odds a little bit with my party. I think the brightest and best people in this world are in this country. I think they're here on every single street. In this country, there's a doctor, there's a brain surgeon, there's a solicitor, there's a teacher, there's a...
But we need to train them.
We need to train them
the
all.
BMA in 2008 voted not to have more medical places because they wanted it to be more exclusive, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So the unions are causing a lot of problems in this country.
So I guess the killer question is, guys, should we have a cap on migration?
Oh, 100%. It goes without saying, yeah. I mean, it should be around 100,000. We don't have enough hospitals. We don't have enough housing. And also the students. Like, I live in an area where there's lots of students, and I was moving around the time when they were going to start school. It was a nightmare to find a home because a lot of the students pay a year up front, so the landlords favour them.
Should we have a cap, though, Barry? That's a killer question.
No, I think the point is, always you're going to get the need that you have for migration to fluctuate. And that will be in accordance with the fertility of our domestic population.
Is it fair, Barry, to take the brightest and best from places like India?
That's a real problem. And that's why I think you also believe that we should be training more people in this country to do the jobs so that we're not actually depleting other countries of their doctors, of their best minds.
But then doctors and nurses would go somewhere else, probably.
Well, the trouble at the moment, and you know this is the case, Lee, our doctors, many of them, they get trained in this country, best training in the world, I would say. What do? They then go off to Australia because it's an easier life and they get more money.
They shouldn't be able to do that.
So would you encourage a covenant in their contract, Barry?
I would, but I'd also say we need to pay them properly so other countries are not more attractive.
Run out of time, but still to come. We've got Sam Prince from Made in Chelsea. He's on the show for the first time. Do not go away.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise
and who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, that's last orders at the bar. If you want a job doing, do it yourself, because Dominique, our producer, she's gone off somewhere. She'll be back in a minute. But look, I'm joined by the brilliant Sam Prince, made in Chelsea.
Yeah.
How did that happen, Sam?
That happened a few years ago. They reached out when I was about 18, and I've watched the show for a few years beforehand, and it seemed like a good opportunity, and it's been good fun.
So as a young man going into that environment, all the cameras like we've got here today, and all these other people, and you get fans all over the internet. How does that impact your life? It must have changed it instantly.
A little bit of change. I think it's a being in front of the camera a lot of the time. We are filmed throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of filming. It's an interesting life for sure, especially getting recognised in certain places. We've just been in Sydney for 8 weeks, so being recognised on street corners is very bizarre.
Fan mail. You must get some of that.
Not so much fan mail. I get a lot of messages on Instagram, some very bad, some nice, but...
Some graphic messages?
Not so much graphic messages, occasionally, but yeah, let's get past those ones.
So, I guess, you know, me being an MP, we get the hateful stuff online. It can be a toxic place, the internet.
Hey, I get a lot of hate messages. I can be seen as a controversial character, as people say.
Why are you controversial?
I very much, I say what I think, and I think sometimes when I say what I think, I can get myself in trouble. I sometimes don't think things through, and I have definitely got in trouble a few times, but these things happen.
Yeah, I suppose I get accused of that sometimes. I have this, I don't know what it is about me, but I have to get everything off my chest in a day.
That's the same as me, yeah.
And if I go to bed at night and I can't go to bed at night and rest thinking, I wish I would have said that.
Yeah.
And that sometimes comes back to bite you a little bit. I wish I could curb it. But then again, I mean, you are what you are.
Yeah.
So, you told me earlier, Sam, about your condition you've got, which is ADHD. How does that affect your life?
To be honest, it doesn't. I think ADHD is, they kind of name it as almost a disability. Yeah. I think it's almost a superpower. I think I can focus in a lot of situations. I can almost hyper-focus, I feel like. But I do get distracted sometimes, and that does. But I think I know how I work. Sometimes I just kind of when I do get distracted, I just move on to another task. But
see, I like that, the way you described it as a superpower, not a disability, because far too many people are labelled in this country as being disabled, whether they're autistic or got ADHD or whatever the condition. Like you say, it can be a superpower. You can excel at something.
Yeah, I don't think you should be, oh, I've got ADHD, it's a bad thing. I actually think for me, it's been a good thing, because I do have a lot of energy. Do I find it hard to do small tasks? Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
But then I know how my body works. Also, I think exercise is a big key thing. Keeping healthy puts me in a good headspace, so it doesn't really disable me at all.
So what do you do in your spare time to chill out?
To chill out, I mean, I like pints. I do like lagers.
Drinking?
Drinking. I've just been in Australia. We've done a hell of a lot of beer reviews, and they've been, which went viral. And it was, I like going to the pub. I have a business as well, which keeps me very busy.
Tell me about your business, Sam. What is your business?
Business, I have a houseplant company called Bella, which is BELLR, and we focus on houseplants, but doing houseplants at an affordable price. During lockdown, I was with my best friend, and we were thinking, what can we both do that we're passionate about, and that was houseplants. And Bella was born, and we have a nursery in Sevenoaks, so no drop shipping, which means we can drop the price a lot.
See, I'd never thought of that house. I mean, lots of people during lockdown had dogs and pets and plants. They don't talk to you, do they?
They don't talk to you, but you should definitely look after them. And I feel like we have people that do sing to their plants, which message us on the daily regarding how they look after their plants in different ways. But yeah.
Is that a sign of madness?
I think it could be a sign of madness, but...
What's your bestseller?
Bestseller is a Monstera deciduosa. They sell beautiful plant, grow very quickly, easy to look after. A lot of people want plants that are easy to care. And those Monsteras, we get them in, they're straight out the door immediately almost.
So we've had reality TV stars on before on this programme. One of the questions I always ask them, Sam, is if there's a young person out there watching this or seen an advert somewhere online to go for an audition for a reality TV show, what would be the best advice you'd give them?
I think be yourself. I think trying to be someone else doesn't work. I think people, and I think these shows want authentic. They want authentic people who can film on camera, but also just they can just be themselves. I would always just say, be yourself and be confident.
Do you think there is some people out there that's gone and been on these shows that aren't being themselves and just
for sure.
To the camera?
There is definitely people that are not authentic and definitely play up to these cameras, for sure.
And how does that pan out?
I don't know. I mean,
does it end in tears?
I don't know if it ends in tears, but I think eventually people do kind of see who they really are, for sure.
And what do you... I mean, obviously you're only 26 now. So I would imagine you're still in contact with some of your old school friends and college friends or whatever. What do they think to all this?
A lot of my friends, I'll be honest, a lot of my friends don't think I should get a real job, essentially, but also, which I completely understand, but at the same time...
Get a proper job.
Get a proper job. At the same time, but it is a full-time job because we are filming all the time. We only really get a month off at the back end of the year. But at the same time, it's good fun and I enjoy it.
I guess, I mean, people that are saying get a proper job, get a real job, I bet a lot of them would swap places with you.
Maybe some of them, but also the reason why I do it is also for my business. It's great for people to understand what I do. They do follow our whole reality, so it's good for business as well.
Okay, so picture yourself, you're 26 now, 10 years' time, you're 36, what do you hope to be doing?
I hope to be doing something more in business. Hopefully I will not be on any reality TV, but I hopefully to be excelling my business, and there's a few other projects I'm working on this year.
To grow your business?
Grow my business, and there's a few other businesses I would like to launch in the next couple of years.
Such as? Can you give me a little
I've always been obsessed with restaurants and cafes, and it's something that hopefully we'll see over the next couple of years.
Restaurants and cafes. Do you fancy your chances in the kitchen?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
I think we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because this side of the bar, we've got a celebrity chef, Anthony Worrell-Thompson. He's going to come in now.
Here we go.
Hey, Anthony. Welcome back. So we've got this young man here, Sam. How
you doing? How are you?
Just come here. Yeah. He fancies his chances in the kitchen. He wants to open a restaurant and this sort of stuff. You got any advice for him?
Don't.
Don't?
Don't.
Don't. Why not?
Don't open a restaurant. It's the hardest work in the world, I think. And you have to be really passionate, which I'm sure you would be, but it's your life. Yeah. And so many relationships break down because of catering and hours and all this sort of thing. It's really hard to bring up a family. I loved it. No, I'm not selling it, but I loved doing what I did. Yeah. And I'm very lucky. I have a beautiful wife who loves doing the front of house. Yeah. And it worked, but it doesn't happen that often, you know? No. I mean, it's an amazing business if you get it right.
It must be a very satisfying job.
Satisfying, again, if you get it right. Yeah. There's more people going into bankruptcy in restaurants and probably any other industry.
OK, so we're here behind the bar, guys, on the pull, pint pot each. I think you're on the end tap there, Sam, the red one.
Yeah, I'm still delicious.
That's, yes. Anthony, you're on this one here, the real ale, or you're on that one. Yeah. You've got 20 seconds to pull a pint and then just plonk it on the bar. Time starting now. Let's have a look. Anthony's done this before.
No,
you haven't, yeah?
I'm not allowed behind the bar. My wife won't let me behind the bar.
I'll tell you what, Sam's looking a bit of an expert as well on this one. That's a good head. Put that on there.
There we go.
Wow. And Sam is on.
That's pretty good as well.
That's honestly, if you'd have seen that pint I poured last week, I mean they are.
I must say, I do think this one's perfect.
It is perfect. Now we need a judge. Where's Dominique, our super producer? She's here. She's got a hat on. Yeah. So look at this, Dominique.
This is a judging hat.
We've got that's Sam's. And that's Anthony's. So you've just come this way, darling.
All right, then. Well, you're taking me away from my job, Lee. You're complaining about me not being here, but my God, they're pretty much near perfect. And Lee, I think you've got some learning to do over here.
Yeah. So what are we going to give Anthony?
I will give Anthony, so which is Anthony's?
That one there.
I would say that is a 9.5.
No, that's mean. That's mean. It's definitely a 10.
Definitely a 10.
It's 10 all day long.
Well, you asked me to judge.
Okay. I'll keep my nose out.
I would say that Sam is a 9 because the pint glass isn't quite as full.
Oh well.
I must say, I'll give it to you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
If you need cookery lessons, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. We've got a 10. And did we get a 10?
Yeah, I'll give him a 10.
Give a 10 in the end to Anthony. That's great. And a 9.5 or a 9?
9.5.
9.5, so that's great. Listen, guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Absolute pleasure. We've got young and old.
Great to meet you.
Steady, boy.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Lee Anderson's Real World. Look, have a great weekend. Stay safe. But now it's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan.
Back. Coming up on Friday Night Live after another policy-free speech, can we believe a word Keir Starmer says? Following the Jeffrey Epstein sex scandal, is it time for King Charles to dump Prince Andrew from the royal family? And as its popularity plummets, is it time to call out veganism for what it actually is? An eating disorder. Plus, in a developing story, more by-election hell for Rishi Sunak as a top Tory quits. Plus, why I'm becoming a woman. I'll see you after the news.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather